Hi and welcome. And I'm so excited. And I'm excited because I started to get feedback from viewers in form of suggestions and corrections, which is awesome. Please keep it coming. So in this episode, I'll cover several topics. The first one is the most important. It is axios update and its breaking change that result in some confusion. Next, we'll have a look at a bug I introduced in previous episode, which was caught by one of the viewers. Then we'll talk a little bit about different ways to store current user details. And lastly, we'll change a little bit jwt-decoding on client. So let's get started. Axios was updated to version 13 and it introduced breaking change. Now it has different error response that breaks our error handling. So if you just started this series and came to this episode by call out for clarification and want to follow along without any changes, make sure that you use Axios version 12. For that, open package.json and here remove this character, and that will ensure that you use this particular version. Save the file, go to terminal and run npm install, like this. But to keep things up to date, we're gonna update to this new version right now. So you can read about the changes right here in an error handling upgrade guide. You can read about error handling and what changed and how it works right now. I'll leave this link in the description to this video. So basically we go back here and let's define version. The latest version is 13.1. So let's save it and let's run npm install. Okay, good. And while we're here in package.json file, let's change this script from server to start. This way we do not need to type npm run server all the time. We just need to type npm start, which is much better. So now we need to find all instances where we use error response, and we handle errors only in form components. So let's open login form. Basically we have just login form and sign up form, and we are lucky that application is very small right now. So let's open this form, and here on submit we have this code here where we handle error, and all we need to do is just add to this error response object like this. And that will do for login. So let's test it in a browser, just trying to log in with invalid credentials. Okay, so if I try to log in right now, I have invalid credentials, everything works, that's good. Now let's go to sign up form. And the same thing here, in on submit we have this code here, so let's get rid of this data here, let's define it to error. And here we'll do error response data. So now let's test this, but before testing, we need to comment this thing out when we're making requests from client on Blur, so it will not interfere with server validations. So let's go back to browser and let's try to sign up. So here I'm trying to sign up with already taken username and email, and when I'm trying to do that, I have errors, everything works. Nice. So from now on, we'll use this new Axios version and hopefully we'll not encounter any other breaking changes in the future, but that's just the life of web developer and it's fun. So let's commit this change pretty quickly. We update to Axios version 13.1. So now let's look into bug I introduced in the previous episode. Let's open our, and of course I need to uncomment this stuff from here. So let's open our middleware Authenticate that we created in previous episode, and right here in this block here, do you see the problem? That's what happens when RAM doesn't test code. Testing is good, so let's test this portion of code and see this nasty bug. So for that, we go back to browser and let's log in as existing user like this, and now let's delete this user. I'm gonna open developer tools here. So for that, let's open PSQL. We're going to use just the command line interface for PostgreSQL, Redux database. And right here, just do delete from users. So that will remove all users from the database. We just have one. And to quit it, /q. Okay, so now, if I try to go to new event and try to submit this form, it actually works as it's supposed to work. We have this error returned, everything's cool. But if we go to terminal and go back here in our server, we can see that we have an error, can't set headers after they are sent. And that happens because of course, you need to put this code in else block, like this. And that will fix it. So if we try it again, just create it, it behaves the same way, but now we do not have any errors on the server. So the lesson I learned again and again and again is always test your stuff. Thanks Oleg for pointing this bug out. So let's commit this small change as well. Fix bug in authentication middleware. Also, we can get rid of all of this code from here, and that will also fix our bug, and just set user ID on request object like Nicholas proposed. So instead of making request here, all we do here is actually making request user ID. So we create a new field here, and then we just set it to decoded ID. And then we pass it down the chain like this. And this way we do not query database with every request, which is more efficient. And later in routes where we need complete user, we can query database and handle non-existent user there. Most of the time, we need only user ID anyway. For example, to create relationships between tables, and with relational databases, we'll have constraints that will not allow us to create records with non-existent user. This is totally valid approach, it's more performant, but personally, I'll choose convenience in this case. I have 2 points here. The first, by setting current user here, I'm sure that this user exists and I don't need to check it for existence anymore. I immediately respond with unauthorized and stop right here. No other code is run, which is quite convenient. And the second, if you have possibility of admin blocking or deleting user, like we did for our test here, then if we don't check for user existence, this user will have access to API until he tries something that will at last force check for user, like here in the browser. With this change, if I try to create this new event, I'm getting OK response from server. And now in router, when we create new event, we need to handle another type of error when user ID is invalid. And while in this particular case we are not yet concerned about blocked or banned users, still I prefer to make this DB query here and make my life easier in the future. So I'm gonna return it back. To cut a long story short, developing is about trade-offs. You need to think about your case, about pros and cons, and make a decision. And if this decision comes to bite you in the future, no fret, you're a smart person, you'll figure something out. So I'll leave this DB query here, but feel free to experiment and make up your own mind about it. So thanks again guys for your feedback, I really appreciate it and keep it coming. Okay, so last small thing that we'll do in this episode, we are going to use another package for decoding JWT on client. So let's go back to terminal here and let's install and save jwt-decode package. And all this package does is decodes token, and that's exactly what we need. We do not need verification or any other functionality that jsonwebtoken package provides. We do not need this stuff on the client. So now let's go and open auth actions. And here, instead of using jwt and jsonwebtoken, we're going to use jwt-decode. And we're going to use jwt-decode package here. And here in login, we're going to use this jwt-decode token like this. And the same thing we need to do with client index. Again, we change this jwt to jwt-decode. We input jwt-decode. And here where we use it, we change it to jwt-decode this token. And this way we do not need to mess with webpack configs. So let's go to webpack configs, and at the bottom here, let's delete this node stuff, because jwt-decode package doesn't use anything of it. So now if we restart server, it seems to work fine. So I'm gonna just log out and sign up the new user because I deleted the previous one. Like this, seems to work. Now I'm gonna log in and it works, nice. So let's commit. So we replaced jsonwebtoken with jwt-decode on client. And on server, of course, we use the whole package. And that's it for this episode. Let me know if this kind of feedback episodes is interesting for you and should I do others in the future. So thank you for your time, and if you found this episode useful, please share it with your friends, subscribe to this YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter to get updates. Thanks for watching.